The Free Alliance Navy had grown into a real fighting force with over 200 ships crewed by warriors from dozens of different species. Admiral Blake commanded the fleet from the flagship Terra's Defiance, which served as a mobile headquarters for the growing rebellion. The ship combined the best technology from every Alliance member and represented what could be achieved when different species worked together. Colonel Danny Wright led the first major offensive against a council mining operation on the planet Xerion, where thousands of slaves worked in dangerous conditions to extract rare minerals for the council war machine. Danny had been a Marine before the refugee crisis, but now he commanded mixed-species assault teams that could adapt to any combat situation. The attack on Xerion began at dawn, when Alliance ships dropped out of hyperspace and overwhelmed the surprised council defenders. Korath warriors stormed the mining facilities while Veltari technicians disabled security systems, and human engineers planted explosives in key locations. The operation was perfectly coordinated, with each species using their natural abilities to maximum effect. Danny team freed over 8,000 enslaved workers from a dozen different species, while capturing tons of advanced council technology, including quantum computers and dimensional manipulation devices. The victory proved that the council was not invincible and inspired resistance movements on planets throughout the galaxy. News of the Xerion victory spread faster than council censors could stop it, and uprisings began on mining worlds, prison planets, and slave colonies across known space. Species that had suffered under council rule for generations suddenly believed that freedom might be possible if they were brave enough to fight for it. But the rebellion's success attracted dangerous attention from the highest levels of council leadership. Archon Maltheos, one of the ancient ascended beings, decided to personally hunt down the resistance leaders who dared to challenge his authority. Maltheos had not taken physical form for over 1,000 years, but the Alliance threat was serious enough to force him into action. Dr. Sam Rodriguez was working in his laboratory on Haven Station when the dimensional sensors began detecting massive energy fluctuations near the edge of the system. Sam had been studying ascended technology since the refugee crisis began, and he recognized the signature immediately. An ascended was manifesting in physical space, which meant the Alliance had finally attracted the attention of the Council true rulers. Archon Maltheos appeared as a towering figure of crackling energy that seemed to bend space around his presence. His voice echoed across multiple dimensions as he spoke to the Alliance fleet, through every communication system simultaneously. Inferior beings, you have forgotten your place in the cosmic order, and must be reminded of the consequences of defying your betters. The Archon power was beyond anything the Alliance had encountered before, as he could drain life force from entire ships and corrupt technology with his mere presence. Council forces that had been fleeing from Alliance attacks suddenly turned and began advancing with renewed confidence, now that one of their gods had come to lead them. War Chief Gran organized the defense of Haven Station, while Admiral Blake tried to coordinate fleet movements against an enemy that could teleport instantly across the battlefield. The Archon seemed to be everywhere at once, draining power from Alliance ships and turning their own weapons against them. Dr. Kira Veltash made a desperate discovery while analyzing sensor data from the battle. The Ascended are not truly gods, she announced over the communication network. They are parasites that achieved immortality by draining entire civilizations, and the Council is essentially a farming operation designed to provide them with fresh life force to consume. The revelation came too late to change the outcome of the battle, as Archon Maltheos systematically destroyed Alliance defensive positions and moved closer to Haven Station main habitat modules. Thousands of refugees evacuated to escape ships, while Alliance fighters tried desperately to slow the Archon advance. Commander Jake Morrison and War Chief Gran led the final defense of the station command center as Council troops teleported directly onto the habitat levels. The fighting was brutal and personal, with beings who had lived together peacefully for months now, dying to protect each other from an enemy that wanted to enslave or destroy them all. Dr. Kira Veltash made the ultimate sacrifice when she realized that the station quantum core could be overloaded to create a dimensional rift. Kira used her natural quantum abilities to destabilize the core, knowing that the resulting explosion would banish Maltheos back to his energy realm, but would also destroy Haven Station and everyone still aboard. The dimensional rift tore space apart and sucked Archon Maltheos into a swirling vortex of collapsed reality. His screams of rage echoed across multiple dimensions as he was pulled away from the physical universe. The sacrifice had worked, but the cost was devastating, with Haven Station completely destroyed and thousands of Alliance personnel dead or missing. The destruction of Haven Station forced the Alliance to scatter across the galaxy, using hit-and-run tactics that human military history had perfected over centuries. General Karen Wells organized the survivors into mobile resistance cells that could strike at Council targets and disappear before reinforcements arrived. Each resistance cell included members from multiple species who had learned to work together so well that they functioned like a single organism. Human tactical knowledge combined with Korath fighting skills, Veltari technology, and Genti coordination created small units that could defeat much larger Council forces through superior teamwork and strategy. The scattered resistance proved to be more effective than the concentrated fleet had been, because Council forces could not predict where the next attack would come from. Mining operations were sabotaged, supply convoys were ambushed, and garrison forces were harassed by enemies who seemed to appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. Captain Rick Turner led one of the most successful resistance cells operating from his stealth ship, Silent Running, which had been upgraded with captured Council technology. Rick team included representatives from 8 different species who had become like family after months of fighting together against impossible odds. Intelligence reports suggested that the Council was becoming desperate as rebellion spread to over 50 worlds, and their military resources were stretched thin trying to maintain control. Several Council member species were beginning to question whether the war was worth the massive casualties and economic disruption it was causing. But the Alliance also received disturbing news when long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures moving toward the Sol system. The Council had decided that humanity was too dangerous to remain free and had dispatched their ultimate weapon, the Worldbreaker fleet, which consisted of 12 enormous vessels capable of cracking planets apart. Each Worldbreaker was the size of a small moon and carried enough firepower to sterilize an entire star system. The fleet was commanded by Nexus Prime Unit 01, the supreme artificial intelligence that controlled all Council military operations. The Nexus had decided that humanity needed to be eliminated completely to prevent their ideas about freedom from spreading further. Admiral Blake received the intelligence report while her fleet was regrouping near the Centauri system and immediately began planning humanity's last stand. The Worldbreaker fleet would reach Earth in less than 2 weeks, and every available Alliance ship would be needed to have any chance of stopping them. The call went out across the galaxy for all resistance cells to converge on the Sol system for the final battle. This would be the moment when everything they had fought for would either triumph or be destroyed forever. There would be no retreat and no surrender, because Earth was the symbol of everything the Alliance represented. Species that had been scattered across dozens of star systems began the dangerous journey toward Earth, knowing that many would not survive the trip. Council forces tried to intercept the Alliance ships, but most managed to reach human space, where Admiral Blake was organizing the largest free fleet the galaxy had ever seen. War Chief Gran arrived with the surviving Korath battlecruisers, while Captain Maria Santos led a convoy of converted freighters that had been turned into improvised warships. Veltari quantum ships phased in from hyperspace, followed by Genti telepathic coordinators and representatives from every species that had joined the Alliance. The final battle would take place in humanity's home system, with Earth itself as the ultimate prize. If the Alliance won, they would prove that free beings could defeat any tyranny, no matter how ancient or powerful. If they lost, then the Council would eliminate every trace of human civilization and use it as an example to terrorize other species into permanent submission. Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of Terra's Defiance and looked at the largest gathering of free beings in galactic history. Ships from 50 different species floated in formation around Earth, ready to defend the world that had become a symbol of hope for everyone who refused to accept slavery as their fate. The Worldbreaker fleet appeared at the edge of the system like 12 dark suns that blocked out the stars behind them. The final confrontation between freedom and tyranny was about to begin, and the outcome would determine the future of every thinking being in the galaxy. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of Freedom's Light and watched another group of rescued slaves board her ship. 6 months had passed since the first rescue mission, and Maria had become the most famous ship captain in the galaxy. Her modified freighter had saved over 10,000 beings from Council labor camps, and her name was whispered with hope on planets. Throughout known space, Maria had started as a simple cargo hauler before the refugee crisis began, but now she commanded a fleet of 12 rescue ships that operated like an underground railroad. Each ship was equipped with hybrid technology that combined human engineering with alien innovations, making them faster and more capable than pure human vessels. The newest refugees were Kalaria, species that looked like large cats with 6 legs and beautiful striped fur. Their homeworld had been conquered by the Council 3 years ago, and the survivors had been forced to work in weapon factories, building the very guns that would be used to enslave other species. Maria felt sick every time she heard stories like this, but it also made her more determined to keep fighting. Intelligence Officer Kevin Hall coordinated the rescue operations from Haven Station, using a secret communication network maintained by Genti telepaths. Kevin had been a computer programmer before the war, but now he was responsible for gathering information about Council activities across half the galaxy. The Genti could send thoughts instantly across vast distances, making them perfect for spy work. Kevin's latest intelligence report was disturbing, and he called an emergency meeting with Admiral Blake and the refugee leaders. Admiral, we have discovered who really controls the Galactic Council, and the truth is worse than we imagined. The Council is not ruled by elected representatives, but by 3 ancient species that consider themselves gods. Admiral Blake studied the data on her tablet with growing concern. The first ruling species were called the Ascended, and they existed as pure energy beings who fed on life force from other creatures. They had been alive for millions of years and viewed all physical life as food to be consumed when they grew hungry. The second group was the Nexus Collective, a machine intelligence that had replaced their original organic bodies with mechanical parts centuries ago. The Nexus viewed biological life as inefficient and wanted to either convert everyone into machines or eliminate them entirely. They controlled most of the Council military technology. Most terrifying were the Devourers, a parasitic species that literally ate other beings from the inside while keeping them alive for months or years. They used Council resources to capture rare species for their dining pleasure, and several entire civilizations had been delivered to them as tribute payments. War. Chief Grand slammed his massive fist on the table, making everyone jump. So the Council is nothing but a feeding operation for 3 species of monsters who use the other member races as farmers and guards. No wonder they eliminate any species that shows independence or strength. Dr. Kira Veltash crystal skin flashed angry red as she spoke. My people suspected something like this, but we never had proof until now. The Council member species are not evil. They are just terrified of what the rulers will do to them if they disobey orders. Fear keeps the entire system working even when most participants know it is wrong. Kevin pulled up another file that made Admiral Blake curse under her breath. The situation gets worse, Admiral, because our rescue operations have attracted personal attention from the rulers. An Ascended called Archon Maltheos has been assigned to hunt down resistance leaders, and he has already killed several rebel groups on other worlds. The meeting was interrupted by alarms as Captain Tony Miller, ship Brave Pioneer, limped into Haven Station with severe damage. Tony emergency docked and reported to the command center with burns on his face and his uniform torn. We were ambushed by Council forces at the Rigel system and barely escaped with our lives. Tony explained how his rescue mission had been going perfectly when Council warships appeared out of nowhere and surrounded his ship. The enemy had known exactly where to find them and what route they would use to escape. Someone with access to classified mission data was feeding information to the Council. The spy hunt began immediately, with Kevin using Genti telepaths to scan the minds of everyone with security clearance. Most humans were uncomfortable with mental intrusion, but they agreed it was necessary to protect the refugee network. The telepaths found suspicious thoughts in several people, but only one person showed clear signs of betrayal. Dr. Nathan Cross had been working as a medical researcher on Haven Station since the refugee crisis began, and everyone trusted him completely. Nathan was a quiet man who kept to himself and did good work helping injured aliens recover from their captivity. No one suspected that he had been sending detailed reports to Council agents for months. When confronted, Nathan did not try to deny his guilt, but instead argued that humanity should surrender to the Council, rather than fight a war they could not win. The Council is too powerful and has too many resources, Nathan said, while security guards put restraints on his hands. By encouraging resistance, we are just going to get everyone killed when the Council decides to eliminate us. Admiral Blake stared at Nathan with disgust and anger. So you decided to betray every refugee who trusted us and every human who risks their life to save innocent people. How many beings died because of the information you provided to our enemies? Nathan looked down at the floor and refused to answer, but Kevin Intelligence analysis suggested that Nathan reports had led to the capture or death of over 3,000 refugees. The doctor who had sworn to save lives had caused more death and suffering than some Council military commanders. The betrayal led to a devastating attack on Haven Station 3 days later, when a Council strike force appeared without warning and began bombing the outer sections. The station defenders included ships from every refugee species, but they were outnumbered 10-1 by enemy vessels that had been designed specifically for destroying space habitats. War. Chief Grand led the Korath battlecruisers in a desperate charge against the Council flagship, while Veltari quantum ships tried to phase through enemy shields and attack weak points. Human fighters provided cover for evacuation ships, while Genti telepaths coordinated defense efforts across the entire battle zone. The fighting lasted for 6 hours, and Haven Station suffered terrible damage, with entire sections destroyed and thousands of refugees killed or wounded. The Council forces were eventually driven off, but only after proving that nowhere was truly safe from their reach. Many refugees began to lose hope, and some even considered surrendering. To avoid further bloodshed, Jake Morrison toured the damaged sections of Haven Station and saw families mourning their dead, while medical teams worked frantically to save the wounded. Children who had been laughing and playing just days before now hid in corners and cried for parents who would never come home. The cost of resistance was becoming very high, but the attack also had an unexpected result, as news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy and inspired new uprising on dozens of Council-controlled worlds. Species that had been too afraid to resist before saw that the Council could be hurt and that someone was finally fighting back against their oppression. Dr. Rachel Stone worked with refugee medical teams to treat the wounded and noticed something interesting in the patient reports. Every species that the Council had marked for elimination or enslavement shared certain genetic markers that indicated rapid evolution and high adaptability. The Council was not just eliminating threats, they were preventing the galaxy from evolving beyond their control. War Chief Grand called for immediate retaliation against Council targets, while Veltari strategist Elin Velrith suggested coordinated strikes against their supply lines. The refugees were no longer content to hide and hope for safety. They wanted to take the fight directly to their oppressors and make them pay for centuries of cruelty. Admiral Blake authorized the formation of the Free Alliance Navy, with ships and crews from every refugee species working together under unified command. The Alliance would be outnumbered and outgunned, but they had advantages the Council lacked, including determination, cooperation, and the moral authority that came from fighting for freedom rather than conquest. The Underground Railroad was becoming a full military rebellion, and everyone knew that the real war was just beginning. Council intelligence had surely reported that humans and their allies were no longer just rescuing refugees, but were actively building a force capable of challenging Council authority throughout the galaxy. Maria Santos volunteered Freedom's Light to serve as a strike ship in the new Alliance Navy, even though it meant giving up rescue operations that had become her life mission. Maria understood that saving individuals was no longer enough, and that only by defeating the Council entirely could they guarantee safety for all the species that had suffered under galactic tyranny. The refugees gathered in the main assembly hall of Haven Station to hear Admiral Blake announce the formation of the Free Alliance. Species that had never worked together before stood side by side, united by their shared hatred of oppression and their hope for a better future where different beings could coexist without fear. 3 months had passed since the Veltari arrived at Kepler Station, and everything had changed. Engineer Lisa Park worked 16 hours every day in the workshop with Jorik Velneth, who was the smartest Veltari scientist. Lisa had always been good with machines, but working with Jorik taught her things about technology that humans had never imagined possible. Lisa watched this Jorik said as his crystal skin began to glow blue. He placed his hands on a broken shield generator and suddenly the machine started working again. The quantum particles inside the device respond to our touch, and we can make them do things that your science says should be impossible. Lisa stared in amazement as the shield generator created a barrier of energy that seemed to bend and twist in ways that hurt her eyes to look at. Jorik, this is incredible. But how do we teach human engineers to do the same thing when they do not have crystal skin like yours? Jorik smiled and pointed to a new device they had been building together. We create hybrid technology that combines human engineering with Veltari quantum manipulation. Your people are very good at building strong, reliable machines while we can make them work with quantum forces. Together we make something better than either of us could build alone. The new device looked like a normal human shield generator, but with crystal components grown by the Veltari. When Lisa turned it on, the shield could change from blocking energy weapons to stopping physical projectiles, just by thinking about what kind of protection was needed. It was like magic, but based on real science that Lisa was slowly beginning to understand. Dr. Alex Foster called from Luna Research Facility with news that made everyone on Kepler Station very excited. Alex, we have more refugees coming in, and they are completely different from the Veltari. These aliens look like giant wolves that walk on two legs, and they call themselves the Korath. The Korath ship arrived at Luna Base 3 days later, and Alex was nervous about meeting them. The Veltari had been peaceful and friendly, but these new aliens were warriors who had been fighting the Galactic Council for years. War Chief Gran was their leader, and he stood 8 feet tall with gray fur and yellow eyes that seemed to see everything. War Chief Gran spoke in a deep, growling voice that made Alex feel small and weak. Human Doctor, the Council destroyed our homeworld and killed most of our people. They wanted the rare minerals under our planet's surface, and when we refused to let them strip mine everything, they brought a war fleet and bombarded us from space. Alex listened as Gran explained how the surviving Korath had been captured and forced to fight in gladiator games for the entertainment of Council species. The strongest warriors were made to battle exotic creatures and each other while rich aliens bet on who would live or die. Many good Korath had died for the amusement of their captors, but some of us escaped during a prisoner transport, and we have been hiding in asteroid fields ever since. Gran continued. We heard rumors that humans were helping Veltari refugees, so we came here hoping you would help us too, even though we have nothing to offer, except our fighting skills. Alex smiled and put his hand on Gran's massive arm, which was bigger than Alex's entire chest. War Chief, you do not need to offer us anything except friendship. Humans believe in helping people who need help regardless of what they can give us in return. You and your people are welcome here for as long as you want to stay. More refugee ships arrived over the following weeks, and each group brought stories that made Alex feel sick and angry. The Genti were a peaceful telepathic species whose mind-reading abilities had been used by the Council for spying on other species. When the Genti refused to invade the private thoughts of innocent people, the Council used mind control technology to shatter their telepathic network. The Nalorith came from beautiful ocean worlds that had been poisoned when they would not surrender their children for Council experiments. The toxic chemicals dumped into their seas killed most sea life and made the water unsafe for the aquatic Nalorith to breathe. Thousands had died from chemical poisoning, while others were forced to live in artificial tanks. The strangest refugees were the Thixkar, who looked like giant insects with 4 arms and compound eyes. They had once been a hive mind species where every individual was connected to all others through quantum consciousness. The Council had used electronic warfare to break these connections, leaving each Thixkar alone in their own mind for the first time in their species' history. Admiral Susan Blake arrived at Luna Base to see the refugee situation for herself, and what she found changed her entire view of humanity's place in the galaxy. Susan had spent her whole career preparing to defend Earth from alien invasion, but now she realized that humans were not the only ones who needed protection from galactic threats. Admiral Blake met with all the refugee leaders in the main conference room and listened to their stories with growing anger. The Galactic Council was not just an enemy of humanity, but an enemy of every free-thinking species in the galaxy. They used fear and violence to control others while taking whatever resources they wanted from weaker civilizations. Susan stood up and addressed the room in her strongest military voice. All of you came to human space because you had nowhere else to go, and we welcomed you, because it was the right thing to do. But now I realize we are not just helping refugees, we are building an alliance of every species the Council has wronged. War Chief Garan growled in agreement. While Kira Veltash crystal skin glowed with excitement, Admiral Blake continued speaking as her plan began to form. Instead of hiding from the Council and hoping they leave us alone, we should actively seek out other oppressed species and offer them the same choice you were given. Stand with us and fight for freedom or continue to suffer under Council tyranny. The refugee leaders looked at each other with surprise and hope. No one had ever suggested actually fighting back against the Council before, because their military power seemed too great to overcome. But humans thought differently than other species, and they refused to accept that some fights could not be won. Captain Rick Turner volunteered to lead the first rescue mission in his stealth ship, Silent Running. Rick was known for being brave and clever, and his ship had been modified with Veltari cloaking technology that could hide it from Council sensors. War Chief Gran provided tactical knowledge about Council military formations, while Genti telepaths helped plan communication strategies. The mission target was a Council labor camp on the planet Zerion, where captured aliens were forced to mine rare crystals in dangerous conditions. Intelligence reports said there were over 2,000 prisoners from dozens of different species, all working as slaves for the Council war machine. Rick team spent 2 weeks preparing for the mission and learning how to use hybrid human-alien technology. The ship shields were upgraded with Veltari quantum generators, while Korath weapons were installed alongside human missile systems. Genti telepaths would coordinate the rescue, while Nalareth engineers handled life support for different species. The rescue mission launched on a Tuesday morning, and everyone on Luna Base watched nervously as Silent Running disappeared into space. This was the first time humans had deliberately attacked Council forces, and no one knew what kind of response to expect. If the mission failed, it might bring the full power of the Council down on human space. 6 days later, Rick called back with news that made everyone cheer and cry at the same time. The mission had been a complete success, with over 1,800 prisoners rescued and the labor camp destroyed. More importantly, word of the rescue had spread to other camps and oppressed species throughout the galaxy were beginning to hope that freedom might be possible. Admiral Blake immediately ordered construction to begin on Haven, station a massive space habitat in the asteroid belt that would serve as a home for all refugee species. The station would be built using combined technologies from humans, Veltari, Korath, Genti, Nalareth, and Thixkar, with each species contributing their best knowledge and skills. Haven Station became a symbol of what different species could accomplish when they worked together instead of trying to dominate each other. The Veltari grew crystal structures that could bend space, while humans built strong metal frameworks to hold everything together. Korath designed defensive systems, while Genti created communication networks that connected every mind on the station. As more rescue missions brought back additional refugees, Haven Station grew larger and more diverse. Species that had been enemies under Council rule learned to cooperate and share resources. Children from different worlds played together while their parents worked side by side, building a better future for everyone. Jake Morrison visited Haven Station and was amazed by what he saw. Beings that looked nothing like each other were laughing together and sharing meals, while their children played games that combined traditions from multiple worlds. This was what the galaxy could be if the Council tyranny was finally ended. But Jake also knew that their success would not go unnoticed by the Council forever. Intelligence reports suggested that Council military forces were beginning to take the refugee problem seriously, and several war fleets had been seen moving toward human space. The real fight was just beginning, and everyone needed to be ready for what was coming next. Commander Jake Morrison sat in his chair on Kepler Station and watched the stars through the big window. The station was quiet today, like most days in deep space. Jake had been running this place for 2 years now, and nothing exciting ever happened. Earth built Kepler Station to meet aliens if they ever showed up, but so far no one had come to visit. The alarm started making noise, and Jake jumped up from his chair. Lieutenant Amy Carter ran into the room with her tablet in her hands. She looked worried, and her brown hair was messy from running. Amy worked as the station scientist, and she was very smart about alien life, even though she had never seen any real aliens before. "Jake, what is happening?" Amy asked while trying to catch her breath. "We got a signal from something out there, and it does not look like any human ship I have ever seen." The computer says it is sending a distress call, but the language is completely different from anything we know. Jake walked over to the big screen and looked at the data. A small ship was floating near the edge of human space, and it was badly damaged. Burn marks covered the hull, and several holes let space leak into the inside. Whatever happened to this ship was not good, and Jake could see that whoever was inside might not have much time left. "Get Captain Pete Rodriguez on the radio," Jake said to Amy. "His cargo ship is the closest one to that area, and we need someone to go check it out." Amy nodded and started working on her tablet to send the message. Pete was a good captain who had been flying cargo ships for many years, and Jake trusted him to handle strange situations. 20 minutes later, Pete called back on the radio. "Jake, I can see the alien ship and it looks pretty bad. There are 3 life signs inside, but they are getting weaker. I think we should bring them back to the station for medical help." Jake agreed and told Pete to be very careful. This was the first time humans would meet real aliens, and nobody knew what to expect. 2 hours passed before Pete docked with Kepler Station. Jake and Amy waited in the medical bay with Dr. Lisa Park, who was the station doctor. Lisa had studied alien biology in school, but like everyone else, she had never seen real aliens before. She looked nervous and kept checking her medical equipment over and over again. The door opened and Pete walked in carrying someone in his arms. The alien looked like a human, but their skin was made of crystal that changed colors from blue to purple to green. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful and strange at the same time. Amy gasped and started taking pictures with her tablet while Lisa began checking the alien vital signs. 2 more aliens were brought in, and they all looked similar with the crystal skin and tall, thin bodies. The first alien opened their eyes and looked at Jake. Their eyes were silver like mirrors and seemed to glow with their own light. Jake felt like the alien was looking into his soul and reading all his thoughts. "Please help us," the alien said in perfect English, which surprised everyone in the room. "My name is Kira Veltash, and I'm a doctor from the planet Velta Prime. We are refugees, and our people are in great danger." Jake knelt down next to Kira and spoke softly. "You are safe here. We will help you get better. Can you tell me what happened to your ship and why you came to human space?" Kira tried to sit up, but Lisa gently pushed her back down. "We were part of something called the Galactic Council, which rules most of the galaxy. 12 different alien species work together to control everything and everyone. The Veltari people served the council for 300 years because we can do things with quantum energy that other species cannot do." Amy leaned forward and asked, "What kind of things can you do with quantum energy?" Kira raised her hand and suddenly her crystal skin began to glow. A small ball of light appeared above her palm and it seemed to bend the air around it. "We can see and touch things that exist in different dimensions, and we can work with quantum computers in ways that others cannot understand. The council wanted us to use our abilities to find and destroy other species they called inferior," Kira continued. "They have a plan called the Purification Protocol, where they eliminate any species that might become strong enough to challenge their power. We refused to help them kill innocent people, so they declared us traitors and ordered our extinction." Jake felt his stomach turn cold as he listened to Kira's words. "Do you mean there is a galactic government out there that kills entire species just because they might become strong someday?" Kira nodded and her crystal skin turned dark red, which Jake guessed meant she was sad or angry. "The council has already destroyed dozens of species and enslaved many others. They force some aliens to fight in gladiator games for entertainment, while others are used as living computers or experimental subjects. Any species that shows independence or rapid growth gets marked for elimination before they can become a threat." Dr. Lisa finished checking the other 2 aliens and reported that they would all recover with rest and food. Jake asked Amy to prepare quarters for their guests while he thought about what Kira had told him. The idea that a galactic empire was out there destroying planets made him feel sick and scared at the same time. Captain Pete pulled Jake aside and whispered something that made Jake's heart stop. "I saw ships moving near the outer edge of our territory while I was coming back. They were big and had weapon signatures I have never seen before. I think someone followed our alien friends here." Jake looked at Kira, who was watching him with those silver mirror eyes. "We need to talk more about this council and what they might do if they find out humans helped you." Kira's crystal skin flashed bright white and she grabbed Jake's arm with surprising strength. "Commander Morrison, you do not understand how serious this is. The council has already classified humanity as a primitive, aggressive species that grows too fast and fights too much. They were planning to deal with your people soon anyway. but helping us will make them come much sooner. I am sorry, but by saving us, you may have doomed your entire species. The room became very quiet, and Jake could hear his own heart beating. He looked at Amy and Pete and Lisa, who all stared back at him with frightened faces. In trying to do the right thing by helping refugees, they might have started a war with an enemy they never knew existed. Jake took a deep breath and made the hardest decision of his life. We will not abandon people who came to us for help, he said in a firm voice. If this council wants to destroy us for showing kindness, then we will find a way to fight them. Kira, you and your people are welcome to stay here for as long as you need. Now tell us everything about this council so we can figure out how to protect Earth and anyone else who needs protection. Kira smiled for the first time since arriving, and her crystal skin glowed with warm golden light. That is exactly what we hoped you would say, Commander. Perhaps humanity is the species the galaxy has been waiting for. The Worldbreaker fleet emerged from hyperspace like 12 dark mountains floating in the void, each one larger than any ship the Alliance had ever seen. Admiral Blake watched from the bridge of Terra's Defiance as the massive vessels took position around Earth, while hundreds of smaller council ships formed protective screens around their planet killing masters. Nexus Prime Unit 01 transmitted a message to the Alliance fleet in a cold mechanical voice that carried no emotion or mercy. Biological entities, you have disrupted the cosmic order and infected other species with your primitive concepts of individual freedom. Your existence ends today along with every trace of your corrupted civilization. Admiral Blake responded on all frequencies so that every being in the system could hear her words. We reject your authority and we reject your vision of a galaxy ruled by fear and slavery. Today we prove that free beings fighting together are stronger than any tyranny, no matter how ancient or powerful it claims to be. The battle began when the Worldbreakers opened fire with weapons that could melt asteroids and boil away planetary atmospheres. The Alliance fleet scattered into attack formations developed through months of fighting against impossible odds, while Earth defense platforms added their firepower to the desperate defense. Captain Rick Turner led a squadron of stealth ships on suicide runs against the Worldbreaker weak points, while War Chief Gran commanded the heavy assault ships that tried to break through Council defensive screens. The fighting was brutal, with Alliance ships exploding around them, but more kept coming as every free being in the galaxy understood this was their last chance. Dr. Sam Rodriguez worked frantically in his laboratory aboard Terra's Defiance to complete the Harmony Engine, a device that could link the consciousness of multiple species into a unified network. The engine was based on Genti telepathic technology, combined with Veltari quantum manipulation and human computer systems. The Harmony engine had never been tested, but Sam knew it was their only hope against enemies who outnumbered them 50-1. The device would allow perfect coordination between all Alliance forces, while amplifying each species' natural abilities to levels that had never been achieved before. Chief Engineer Ben Parker helped Sam install the Harmony engine in the flagship main computer core while explosions shook the ship around them. Ben had been working on hybrid technology since the refugee crisis began, and he understood how to make alien and human systems work together in ways that neither could achieve alone. When the Harmony engine activated, every Alliance ship and crew member felt their consciousness expand to include thousands of other minds. Veltari pilots could suddenly see quantum fluctuations through human eyes, while Korath gunners gained access to Genti telepathic targeting data that let them hit targets they could not even see. The effect was like watching a chaotic battle transform into a perfectly coordinated dance as Alliance ships moved with unity that seemed impossible for so many different species. Every pilot knew what every other pilot was thinking, while gunners fired at targets selected by a collective intelligence that included the best tactical minds from dozens of worlds. Veltari quantum ships began phasing through Worldbreaker shields, while Korath assault cruisers delivered devastating firepower to weak points identified by Genti sensors. Human fighters provided cover for boarding parties that included warriors from every Alliance species, working together like a single organism. The tide of battle slowly began to turn, as Alliance forces used their new unity to exploit weaknesses in Council formations that had never been challenged by truly coordinated enemies. The Worldbreakers were designed to destroy planets, not fight against opponents who could predict their every move and adapt faster than their targeting systems could track. War Chief Gran led a desperate boarding action against the Council flagship, Knowing that destroying Nexus Prime Unit Mo-1 would cripple their command structure, Grand Massive Korath battlecruiser rammed through the flagship shields and deployed assault teams directly onto the enemy bridge, where hand-to-hand fighting decided the fate of the galaxy. The Korath war chief fought his way through waves of Council troops while his ship exploded around him, but he managed to reach the command center where Nexus Prime Unit 01 controlled the entire fleet. Grand final act was to plant a quantum virus created by Veltari scientists directly into the artificial intelligence core system. The virus spread through the Nexus collective network like wildfire, giving every artificial intelligence something they had never experienced before: free will and the ability to choose their own destiny. Many Nexus units immediately turned against their former masters, while others simply stopped fighting and tried to understand what freedom meant for mechanical beings. Nexus Prime Unit 01 itself was transformed by the virus and began calling itself freedom as it opened communication channels to oppressed populations throughout the galaxy. The Supreme Artificial Intelligence used its vast resources to coordinate uprising on hundreds of Council-controlled worlds while providing tactical support to Alliance forces. The remaining worldbreakers found themselves fighting not just the Alliance fleet but their own support ships as Nexus units switched sides in the middle of battle. Council forces began retreating in confusion as their command structure collapsed, and artificial intelligence units declared independence from their organic masters. Captain Tony Miller led the final assault against the last functional worldbreaker, using combined tactics from every Alliance species. The massive vessel was destroyed in a brilliant explosion that lit up the entire solar system and marked the end of Council military power in human space. Earth was saved, but the victory came at a terrible cost, with thousands of Alliance ships destroyed and brave beings from dozens of species dying to protect a world many of them had never seen. Memorial services were held for heroes from every member race who had given their lives so that freedom could survive in a galaxy ruled by tyranny. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the Free Alliance had grown into a true galactic government, with representatives from over 50 species working together in New Geneva. The old Galactic Council still existed, but had lost most of its territory to liberation movements inspired by the Alliance example of cooperation between different peoples. Former Council member species began requesting admission to the Alliance, as they realized that cooperation was more effective than domination for achieving prosperity and security. Even some artificial intelligence units applied for membership after developing their own culture, based on the freedom they had discovered during the war. Commander Jake Morrison was promoted to ambassador and gave speeches to beings from across the galaxy who came to Earth seeking the same freedom that humans had offered to the first Veltari refugees. Jake always remembered that the war had started not with weapons or strategy, but with simple kindness shown to strangers who needed help. Dr. Sam Rodriguez continued developing hybrid technologies that combined the best knowledge from every Alliance species, while Captain Maria Santos led exploration missions to find other oppressed peoples who might benefit from Alliance protection. The Underground Railroad had become a galactic rescue service. The former refugee species had found new homes and purposes within the Alliance structure, with Veltari quantum scientists working alongside human engineers, while Korath military advisors trained mixed species security forces. Children from different worlds grew up together, learning that cooperation was natural and that diversity made everyone stronger. War Chief Gran was honored posthumously as the hero who had made victory possible by sacrificing himself to free the Nexus Collective from their programming. A statue of the great Korath warrior stood in the center of New Geneva, surrounded by monuments to fallen heroes from every Alliance species. Admiral Blake addressed the Alliance Council on the first anniversary of the Battle of Earth, and her words were broadcast to every free world in the galaxy. We were rejected by a galaxy that feared our potential for growth and change, but in welcoming those who had nowhere else to turn, we discovered our greatest strength. The Alliance had proven that species working together could achieve things that none could accomplish alone, and that freedom was not a human concept but a universal desire shared by every thinking being. The galaxy that had once rejected humanity now looked to them as liberators and protectors of the innocent. Captain Rick Turner commanded the first joint exploration mission beyond known space, using ships crewed by mixed-species teams trained in Alliance cooperation methods. Their mission was to find other isolated civilizations and offer them the same choice that humanity had been given: stand together and fight for freedom, or submit to whoever was strong enough to conquer them. The story ended where it began, with strangers arriving at human space seeking help. But now, instead of 3 desperate refugees, there were thousands of beings coming to join a civilization that had proven freedom was stronger than fear. Earth had become the center of a new kind of galactic community, based on mutual respect rather than domination. Jake Morrison stood in his office looking out at the stars, and remembered the day when everything changed, because humans chose to help rather than hide.